Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jam Vishnu Pad Padamam Saparajikacharya Askar Tarasita Shishimad. His Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jam Vishnu Pad Padamam Saparajikacharya Askar Tarasita Shishimad. Sringagu Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswamaraj Ki Jai. Anantikoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Brahmziko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Jagannath Baldev Shrimati Subhadra Ki Jai. Their Divine Lordship Shri Shri Gauranitai Ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai. Transcendental Prashadam Distribution Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to all assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to all assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga, all glories Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the third canto, chapter 21, conversations between Manu and Kardama Muni, isn't it? Yeah, and we're on text number 1. And today's title will be Ancient Social Design. So this is an interesting topic because it's how society cooperates with the divine. So there's an ancient social design for us. Talk about the Varnashram system and how when it becomes degraded, the whole social system becomes degraded. So the one big idea of this particular chapter, I guess, altogether is that if we align individually and collectively all the living beings with divine purpose, it brings out our highest consciousness and it creates conditions for peace and prosperity. So that's very nice. So it's a very exciting chapter. I'm very excited about this chapter too, because it gives us a blueprint and how we can apply this timeless issues, timeless ideas here. So by discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, we plant these seeds of change and how we can engage in the world. So just if we have small realizations, it can blossom into really significant actions and conditions. And if we internalize the wisdom, then it can transform our lives and then society. So let's dive into the verse. Viduro vacha swayambhuvasya cha manor vamsa parama samataha katyatam bhagavan yatra Maitunendire prajaha Viduro vacha Swayambhuvasya cha manor Vamsa parama samataha Katyatam Bhagavan Yatra Maitunen Ardire Praja Viduruvacha Swayambhuvasha Chamanor Vamsa Parama Samataha Katyatam Bhagavan Yatra Maitunen Ardire Praja Viduruvacha Vidurvacha Swayambhuvasha Chamanor Vachachama Samamada Dhammamanayata Yamideva Vidurvacha Viduruvacha Swayambhuvasha Chamanor Vamsa Padama Samataha Katyatam Bhagavan Yatra Maitunena Viduruvacha Swayambhuvasha Chamanor Vamsa Paramasamata Katyatam Bhagavan Yatra Maitunen Ardire Prajaha Vaishnavis Viduruvacha Swayambhuvasha Chamanor Samata Jamba Bhagavata Matunendavata Viduruvacha Swayambhuvasha Chamanor Vamsa Paramasamataha Katyatam Bhagavan Yatra Maitunena Dide Praja Viduruvacha Vidura said Swayambhuvasya of Swayambhuva Cha and Mano of Manu Vamsaha the dynasty Parama most Samata esteemed Katyatam kindly describe Bhagavan, O worshipable sage, Yatra, in which Maitunena, through sexual intercourse, Idire, multiplied, Praja, the progeny. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Vidura said, "The line of Swayambhuva Manu was most esteemed. O worshipable sage, I beg you, give me an account of this race, whose progeny multiplied through sexual intercourse." Purport. Regulated sex life to generate good population is worth accepting. Actually, Vidura was not interested in hearing the history of persons who merely engage in sex life. But he was interested in the progeny of Swayambhuva Manu, because in that dynasty, good devotee kings appeared who protected their subjects very carefully with spiritual knowledge. By hearing the history of their activities, therefore, one becomes more enlightened. An important word used in this connection is Padamasamata, which indicates that the progeny created by Swayambhuva Manu and his sons was approved by great authorities. In other words, sex life for creating exemplary population is acceptable to all sages and authorities of Vedic scripture. Jai. Om Jnana Tamadandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksusun Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakopa Tubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, the translation again. Vidura said, "The line of Swayambhuva Manu was most esteemed. O worshipful sage, I beg you, give me an account of this race, whose progeny multiplied through sexual intercourse." So as you see, Prabhupada brought out the point that actually Vidura wasn't interested in hearing the history of persons who engage in sex life, but he was interested. Okay. So as I was mentioning in the purport, Srila Prabhupada said that Vidura wasn't interested in people that were, interested in sex life, but he was just interested in the progeny of Swayambhuva Manu because he was a great devotee king and he acted like a king, proper king. He protected his citizens. He didn't exploit the citizens. So these Manus are actually, they reign in the earthly realm, and they actually bring out the whole Varnashram Dharma, and they're actually able to enforce it in those days. But today there's no Manus living on the planet. So it's like really topsy-turvy. The kings are just at each other's throats, trying to take over their land, and they don't care about the citizens. But even though we don't have a Manu here reigning on the earth, we have the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They've come to give us the process of bhakti, which is even more powerful than Varnashram Dharma. It's not that we're not interested in Varnashram Dharma, but we can do both. And you can offer everything to Krishna. So bhakti actually solves all the problems. So this is important. It was described in the 9th canto that the last descendant of Manu disappeared. He's hiding in the Himalayas somewhere, waiting for Satyuga to come in. And then he'll bring out the Varnashram system again. So today there's no kings like that, as you can see at the plight of our planet. So we're at the beginning of a new chapter, so I guess a nice summary would be appropriate. So here we're in this chapter 21, and we're just starting here. As you can see there, it's Vidura. He's inquiring about Manu's dynasty. So he wants to describe the line of Swayambhuva Manu and their progeny. So there's two great sons of Swayambhuva Manu, was Priyavrata and Uttanapad. And they ruled the universe, which was divided into 7 islands. So Maitreya describes Swayambhuva Manu's daughter, Devahuti, who married the sage Kardama. And we saw the picture in the beginning, that was Kardama Muni actually performing sacrifice in order to become qualified to be a true progenitor and to create wonderful children. And he practiced yoga and penance for 10,000 years to attain perfection. And then Lord Vishnu appeared to him. And then he granted him his blessing, promising that he would actually appear as Kapila through Devahuti to teach the Sankhya philosophy. So Swayambhuva Manu and his wife, they set out with their grown-up daughter to find her a suitable husband, and they came to Kardama Muni's hermitage. And they saw him there very bright and shiny, despite his austere life, lifestyle and, like that. So then Manu offers respects to Kardama Muni. Even though he's a Kshatriya king, he's offering respects to Kardama. And then they discuss how Manu travels to protect the virtuous and punish the demons. And then Kardama welcomes him warmly and asks how he can assist the king. So that's, you can see the summary there. I don't know if you can read that very clear there. Is it hard to read? Probably if you're far away. So anyway, there's like 3 main points that I can see is that it describes Swayambhuva Manu's lineage and his daughter Devahuti's marriage to the sage Kardama. And then Lord Vishnu promises to appear as Kapila Dev. And then Swayambhuva Manu visits Kardama's hermitage with his grown-up daughter to find her husband. So, yeah, here's a few ideas that we can learn from this particular chapter. It's the importance of cultivating good character and spiritual qualities in searching for a marriage partner. It's not just external beauty or superficial attributes. So this is what Kardama Muni did. He actually developed his good character by performing all these great austerities for 10,000 years. And then we could learn also from this chapter and Prabhupada's purports the value of self-restraint, simple living, developing mental and spiritual discipline as displayed by the sages. And these can strengthen our resolve and clarity of mind. And then also there's reciprocal roles of leadership, and they should care for the well-being of citizens and counsel and guide, everyone towards virtue and protect the innocent. So this could inspire good governance and active citizenship today. So we should also appreciate how the divine manifests in human affairs. It's not that Krishna just creates the world and then just leaves it, and then you guys are on your own. But actually he appears time and time again, and he sends a lot of his representatives. So this is very nicely described. So we can reflect on these ancient stories and principles and strive to apply them positively in our present day challenges. It's very, it's very worthwhile. So, so the key lessons actually, if you read through Prabhupada's purports in this chapter, he says that regulated sex life to produce good offspring is endorsed as the purpose of spiritual advancement of society. And one should enjoy life under guidance of scriptural principles and offer the results of our actions to the Supreme Lord. And true yoga perfection means seeing and knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not just attaining mystical powers. And we saw that through the example of Kardama Muni. So devotion brings one to the pure spiritual platform beyond just liberation from Maya. And intercaste marriage was allowed in olden days when properly matched. So one has to be properly matched because there's whole reasons for that. And one can actually pray to God for a suitable wife or a husband, but we have to accept his decision. And the ultimate oneness for living beings is sharing the divine interest to serve love and know Krishna. And these varnashram roles are meant to cooperate for spiritual progress, and that provides our infrastructure. So, and how degradation happens when people claim status without proper training and duty. And these scriptural accounts of great beings, they contain timeless teachings to uplift society. So basically the main theme is aligning individuals with the collective living beings for the divine purpose, to lead prosperous, peaceful lives. So, what does this have to do with anything? Can you recognize who that is? Everybody knows. So my son lent me a book they just came out with him, about him. In his own words, he talks about his life. And this is the main thing, was to make something wonderful. This was in 1981 when he started, they came out with the Apple II. So this is what he said. There's an interesting quote I like to quote. It very much relates to what we're going to talk about today. He said, "There's a lot of ways to be as a person, and some people express their deep appreciation in different ways. But one of the ways that I believe people express their appreciation to the rest of humanity is to make something wonderful and put it out there. And you never meet the people, you never shake their hands, you never hear their story or tell yours. But somehow, in the act of making something with a great deal of care and love, something's transmitted there. And it's a way of expressing to the rest of our species our deep appreciation. So we need to be true to who we are and remember what's really important to us." So this is in 2007, he said that. So here he's talking about we have to make something wonderful. And this is a very important point, is that we have to see that this is the whole purpose of the different dynasties coming in the line of these great manus, was to create very wonderful progeny, to create a society that was very peaceful, that was in harmony. But it seems today now, everybody's just interested in making something wonderful, like a product. But the real product is to bring Krishna conscious children into this world. What could it be a better thing to create? And the parents can do that. And Srila Prabhupada gave us the thing. So there's this word called prayojan bodh. It means we have to, as Steve Jobs says here, so we need to be true to who we are and remember what is really important. So prayojan bodh means that we're aware of the goal or the highest necessity. So we have to be very aware, attentive to the necessity and goal of life. And that's what equals sincerity. So then we refresh that sincerity by regular hearing and reading. So that's what we're doing today. So this is a point here. So we can see, talking about machines. And here's a metaphor that I think captures the key idea of this chapter, which is like society is like a complex machine that functions optimally when each part plays its role as designed by their original inventor, guided by an operating manual. So we see, so this is the analogy we see. We know who the designer is, which is, Krishna, and he empowers his representatives like Lord Brahma to create. And then he gives us the Vedas, which is the manual. So in this analogy, society is the machine with interdependent parts. And different classes of people are the machine parts. And the creator of the Varnashram system is the original inventor, which is, we know. And the scriptural prescriptions for social organization serve as the operating manual. So when all the components fulfill their intended purpose smoothly through cooperation, following the guidelines, and then there's efficiency, there's productivity, and there's harmonious output. So, but problems will arise when the parts are overstrained, they underperform, or they clash. Can you imagine that? All the parts clashing and then they're ignoring the operating principles. And this causes substandard results, friction, and even breakdown. So that's what this chapter emphasizes. Adherence to the codes for interpersonal and institutional order as given in the revealed texts. So this founding vision, it upholds welfare when it's embodied. So metaphorically, the machine functions best when the parts act as they're designed. So we can see, so Krishna has given us the process on how to act in this form. The body's like a machine. The whole universe is like a machine, you see. But we're not using these machines to create more machines as far as dead, material, comfortable items, but they're actually meant to create other living beings. That's the greatest wonderful thing we can create, is bring in Krishna conscious children. So here we see Karma Muni again in the forest performing austerities. And it's very interesting how I think that we see how Krishna takes part, and he promised that he would manifest in Devahuti's womb as Kapila to teach the philosophy of Sankhya. So this highlights how, you know, the divine reveals teachings relevant for our era, and through enlightened masters, even coming himself sometimes. But we see the problem that's pointed out also in this chapter is that it makes us aware of the current degraded state of the Varnashram social system, leading to chaos and disorder. And what's the solution? Is offered that the responsible king should protect the moral principles of Varnashram organization by providing training, regulation, and opportunity for different classes. So as I mentioned, there's no Manu, there's no kings that are qualified to do that. But look who's doing it. The pure devotees of Krishna, the representatives of Lord Chaitanya. Like Srila Prabhupada, he did this. You know, his training is amazing. And the benefits, if we properly maintain this Varnashram system, is peace, prosperity, cooperative society, and gradual spiritual perfection, even while fulfilling our material duties. So this chapter is calling us to strive to correctly understand and implement the social teachings on organization given in the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. So it's up to us to constantly remain sincere, as I mentioned, you see, and always refresh that necessity in our mind by continually educating ourselves and others, you know, and embody the virtues, the duties, and the spirit of mutual goodwill. So the leaders must provide this vision and infrastructure and let people regulate themselves for spiritual growth. So that's the key message, is that individual collective welfare depends on the social structure and for developing consciousness that aligns with the divine purpose. And each one of us has our parts to play, like in that huge machinery. So we see what is the great gift that Karma Muni and Devahuti gave. They were able to produce 9 daughters, very chaste daughters, and they helped expand the creation through their descendants. And here Brahma advises Karma Muni to give his daughters in marriage to the 9 foremost sages, and matching their temperaments and likings. And this will spread Karma Muni's fame. So men and women should unite based on character and taste compatibility, not just sexual attraction. So mismatched unions, they lead to unhappiness. So in Kali Yuga, union happens based on sex appeal alone, like cats and dogs. So children are born and not properly, not even like human beings, it seems like. They're devoid of spiritual knowledge. So this is true marriage involves enlightening the couple spiritually to produce spiritually oriented children. So this is a scientific consideration. It should be given properly to match couples. So this is the gift, something wonderful that Karma Muni and Devahuti produced. What to speak of Kapila Dev coming to give transcendental knowledge. And we see in the light of the Bhagavad, there's a very nice verse, 11. It says, in the rainy season, when the rivers swell and rush to the ocean, and as the wind blows the waves about, the ocean appears to be agitated. Similarly, if a person engaged in the mystic yoga process is not very advanced in spiritual life, he can be affected by the modes of nature and thus will be agitated by the sex impulse. It's a very nice purport given there. It's like one paragraph. A person fixed in spiritual knowledge will not be attracted by the allurement of material nature in the form of beautiful women and the sex pleasure enjoyed in their association. One, however, who is still immature in the cultivation of spiritual knowledge may be attracted at any moment by the illusion of temporary happiness, just as the ocean is agitated by the rushing rivers and blowing wind that occur during the rainy season. It is therefore very important to fix oneself at the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master who is a representative of God, so that one will not be carried away by sex agitation. So you can see the modes are so powerful they can immediately sweep up anybody. So that's why we always have to remain sincere and always keep what's important in mind. So there's a interesting, oh, the thing just fell off. So we see this image here showing how the light of the Bhagavat actually gives us this knowledge of Krishna to help us develop, good population. Otherwise, what happens? It becomes a very, very hellish situation for everybody. And this is what the Vedic culture, it provides instructions for all aspects of life. And when these instructions are not followed, then it leads to the degradation of society. And good population and proper raising of children is essential for peace and prosperity and spiritual progress in society. And in ISKCON now, practically what are we like on the third or fourth generation of devotees, right? And Prabhupada even said, nice advanced souls, the demigods are lining up to take birth in ISKCON. So just see, what are the gifts we could bring to the world? So Prabhupada said, what was it, the third generation of our disciples would become pure devotees? Maybe not everybody, but some like that. So it's our responsibility to engage in purify procreation and raise children with love and care. And this is important service. And so when we're raising children, we should use positive language with children, give them good engagement so they're not hankering after material things. You see, so it's not that we want children just to be a certain way according to our idea, but we love them because of who they are. They're spiritual beings, and we want that to develop love for Krishna. So Prabhupada mentions how sexual engagement is meant only for having children, but this is very difficult to follow strictly. But still, we must try to regulate the senses. So bhakti is open for so many classes of devotees. Some may follow strictly, some may not, but still they have faith that Krishna is God, and they're striving to come to that point. So this is a point we have to strive to come to that point. So in order to overcome that lust, we have to cultivate a higher taste by taking shelter of the holy name, decreasing offenses, being humble, tolerant, and respectful to others, and going on Harinam Sankirtan, brings joy, an important part of Krishna consciousness. So that's very important. So there's a lot of distractions and pitfalls. The distractions would be by not following Vedic principles, lead to society's degradation. And we made some mistakes in the past too, like even in the beginning of Krishna consciousness, we wanted to put this distribution of knowledge, like book distribution, even over properly raising children in ISKCON. And so a lot of devotees, we see what had happened to that. And then another pitfall is using TVs, movies, that reduces our taste for devotional service. It puts out that desire for devotional service. I met one Gurukuli girl that after they left the temple, she was in a temple community. She said she watched TV straight for a week because it was so it was something that was not, they were just, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. So then when they had some freedom, then they just dive into it. So this is what happens. So what to speak now? You could dive into your device any second, any time, and people are just doing that, scrolling all throughout the day, just mindlessly. So this is very important. And then also pitfalls: succumbing to lusty desires, illicit sex, speaking negativity to children because we're so concerned about what they do instead of who they are, and not giving children proper engagement. So the solutions is to follow these Vedic principles. Make raising children a priority with love and care. Regulate the senses, restrict our influence on these devices, cultivate a higher taste through chanting the holy names offenselessly, and use positive language and give good engagement to children. And Harinam Sankirtan. So that's the thing. So the main solution is to focus on sincerely chanting the holy names while following the regulated principles. And this higher taste will counteract these distractions, lusty desires, and pitfalls. So raising children properly is also essential, and adding more Harinam increases the joy and devotion. So the Harinam is in different ways: our japa, our chanting, our kirtan, going out like that. And here's, I did some research on Prabhupada talking. There was like over 300 quotes Prabhupada talks about sexual intercourse. So I just picked out 5 verses that he talked about here, and just to see what he says here. And I have some of the references here too, mostly from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so he says, the purpose of human life is to follow God's laws, attain peace of mind under his protection, not pursue selfish enjoyment. Leaders should provide proper direction. In Kali Yuga, human civilization falls into disorder as people disregard rules and regulations around proper conduct and neglect the spiritual purpose of life. Those focused only on economic or sense development are acting like animals. Sex should be for having and training godly children. And here we see Lord Shiva oversees ghosts, giving them bodies and guiding them towards self-realization. He sees past, present, and future and helps the fallen. So this is an example to see what happens when someone doesn't follow the process, like we see in this particular picture here, which is Diti and Kashyapa Muni. By not following the process, they attracted these demons and they created havoc for the world. This is just one case. What to speak of, people now not properly following principles. What are they creating? Something horrible, not something wonderful. So we see the great devotee Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that there's nothing but the holy name to be had within all the 14 worlds. So that means a lot. 14 worlds means the upper, middle, lower planetary systems within the universe. And even in the higher planetary systems, they have a greater standard of sense gratification. And even in the lower heavenly planets, they even have a greater standard of sense gratification than the heavenly planets. It's described in the 5th canto. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, there's nothing as valuable and worthwhile as connecting with the holy name of Krishna. So the idea is that there's no amount of material sense gratification, even on the heavenly planets, that can give us inner satisfaction and joy and self-realization that comes from pure chanting the glories of Krishna. So this is all described there. So there's a nice prayer that was touched upon yesterday a little bit by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I'd just like to repeat that prayer here very quickly. There's a few verses. Longing for the day when offenses cease and taste for God's name increases with mercy shining in the heart. Aspiring to be humble, tolerant, respectful to all, without expectation of honor, in order to relish the nectar of God's name. Seeking detachment from wealth, followers, bodily comforts, begging for causeless devotion to God's feet, birth after birth. Yearning to chant God's names, shiver, lose bodily color, shed tears, become half mad in divine love on the banks of the Ganges. Praying for Lord Nityananda's mercy to reject illusion and preach God's glories as a surrendered soul. Determined to obtain the nectar of God's name despite all obstacles and touch his lotus feet forever. Longing for kindness to bring kindness of all beings, forgetting selfish comforts in eagerness to humbly preach God's order. So this is so nice. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prediction was that the Westerners chanting God's names would come from all over the world. It's coming true. And we can see everyone is able to dive into that ocean of nectar. And Prabhupada is actually fulfilling that order. And now Srila Prabhupada and his representatives, they're manifesting this throughout the whole world. So we're very fortunate for that. So we see, just as a living being attains a transcendental attractive form by rendering service to Lord Hari, similarly, all the inhabitants of the land and water assume beautiful forms by taking advantage of the newly fallen water. So this is from the light of the Bhagavad 10. It talks about how the animals become nourished and beautiful. So in the same way, Prabhupada says in that purport that we have practical experience of this with our students in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Before becoming students, they were dirty looking, although they had naturally beautiful personal features. But due to having no information of Krishna consciousness, they appeared very dirty and wretched. Since they have taken to Krishna consciousness, their health has improved, and by following the rules and regulations, their bodily luster has increased. When they are dressed with saffron-colored cloth, with tilak on their foreheads, and beads in their hands and on their necks, they look exactly as if they have come from Vaikuntha. So this is what Prabhupada describes there. So this is how it's described. So this is the last slide here. This is also light of the Bhagavad, 39. In the autumn, there's a gulf of difference between day and night. During the day, the extreme heat of the sun is unbearable, but at night, the moonlight is extremely soothing and refreshing. Similarly, Lord Krishna is soothing for both the gopis and the mundane man in illusion, who accepts the body as the soul. So see, as long as we're under illusion, we accept the body and the mind as a soul and we'll be unhappy. It's like being burnt by the heat of the autumn. But when we come in contact with Krishna, then at once our life becomes very soothing, the cooling rays of Krishna's mercy. And this is an example of the Vrajas, the gopis. So that's that. So just, he mentions there, the threefold miseries of material existence are at once nullified by intense love of God, which is the ultimate goal of cultivating the human spirit. So just to close here is that, see, the purpose of life is to love and to be loved, not to be loved for what we achieve and do, but for who we are. So this is our goal. And this is what we want to do. We are part of Krishna, and we have the opportunity to create something wonderful in the world. You see, by creating God-conscious children, by spreading this transcendental knowledge, and developing and spreading God consciousness and peace throughout the world. So, thank you for your kind attention. And any questions or comments? Yes, Rabindranath Prabhu.
Yeah, you mentioned different ways to make Krishna conscious children, things that are required. Would you say, is there one thing that's the most important of all those different items you mentioned?
Yes, probably the most important thing, as Prabhupada mentioned, is the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur agrees, and that's why Prabhupada wanted us to chant 50 rounds before the act of conception.
I mean, in terms of after they're born,
After they're born, yeah, is to train them, and one of the is probably, I would say, education and good association. And education means that you're training them up to be wonderful devotees and educating them in a very loving way, for who they are and what they can become, not what they do. I think that's very important. Yeah, because the purpose of life is to love and to be loved, right? Not to be loved for what we achieve, but for who we are. And we don't know, they may be demigods coming from other planets They're waiting in line to take birth in ISKCON, Prabhupada said. And this person that may be a pure devotee, if it's like the third generation, there's pure devotees coming into this movement. So yeah. Is that okay? Thank you. Was there another hand? Oh, okay. All right. Thank you again for your kind attention. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.